Are people born wicked? That's going to be the conversation we're going to have now, because obviously I watched Wicked, and I'm not going to lie, I've got so many things to say. But that's not the point. At the start of the movie, one of the things that Ariana Grande says as an open-ended question is, "Are people born wicked?" And it's a question that I really have a lot to say about, given that, I'm a Bible believing, Holy Spirit filled follower of Jesus Christ, given that I'm a scientist, given that I care a lot, and given that I've seen myself as both a hero and a villain in different people's stories that I've known in my life. The long and short of it is, my answer is no. I do not believe people are born wicked. And I think this is one of those things that society needs to grip onto this truth that I'm about to deliver here for you guys today. And because this is the missing part of the equation, if you will. The Bible says, are we going to go there yet? No, I'll start somewhere else. So, as I've been wrestling with this thought throughout my life, one thing I've always found fascinating to do is, I always have to hear people's backstories, because I don't like to judge. And that's one thing I find the world does differently. So I don't judge somebody because of the way that they look, the way that they talk, the way that even whatever comes out of their mouth. That's why I find it a little bit insufferable in society how hard you have to work to not offend people. Because I'm like, well, let's give everyone a chance to figure out the storyline here. Let's give everybody a chance, somebody said something that offended you. Well, maybe hold on for a second and wait for some context. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know where that came from, and you don't know what they've been through, and you might just have a completely different viewpoint and perspective, and things may not even look the way that they do. I think because for me, I've experienced a lot of people that have been wicked towards me be, seen in the hero spotlight because they were able to play the right play to the world or for themselves. But well, actually it was the other way around. Well, I wouldn't call myself the hero, because I believe, I've said to you guys before, I believe the Bible says we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So to me, I don't believe in good people as a whole. I believe in free will. And I believe that how you utilize your free will eventually get you down one road or another. How you and those around you, directly and indirectly, because all of our decisions in the entirety of the world, they all affect everybody. Because someone will say, like, there's all these exposés now. I'll give you guys a perfect example. I didn't know that Mike Tyson had a history of violence, like of like domestic violence. And let me tell you why I didn't know that. Because society decided that for him, we're going to just know about that, but we're going to kind of put it to the side because we like Mike Tyson and he's a great fighter. But if it was somebody else, wow, that person must have just been born with whatever. You see what I'm saying? So us collectively allowing that meant that, over the years, I discovered this year, and I was like, really? The society's decided that we're just okay with it because it's Mike Tyson. We all collectively, it's something about collective free will. His free will in his own life decisions from what he chooses to do, partnered with the free will choices of his immediate people around him who saw and or experienced these things. And that goes from the victims up to the judicial system, to then the greater society that uses their power that they have, whether that be money, whether that be attention or whatever, joined together. We all came together with our free will to allow for that to have him to have done that, and him not to have been what's the word, completely shunned out of society. People just like, oh yeah, he had a problem with that, we just need to watch that, we just need to whatever, right? So I just find that fascinating. Like I said, similar to um, Kris Jenner. She's my favorite example because I don't understand how enabled. I don't understand how she's convinced everybody so much that she's so good and she's this loving mother when she literally prostituted her daughter and pimps them all out. How and when and how? But like I said, it's the collective free will. It's the free will of her own choice to do it. Ultimately, she's the one who chose to do it. But those who were around and participated also have some responsibility. Those who saw what happened and did whatever have responsibility. Then us as a society knowing that information and allowing it to just and just brushing it off and still going and spending all our money on their products and giving them the attention by watching the stuff that they do and even just whatever. We now collectively as a society have contributed. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why when people ask a question as if like one is just one thing, is somebody born evil? No, it's a lot of things around it. Because who else has accountability that we could suggest? What about the accountability of her own mother to her, and watching her daughter's actions and her job as a mother to direct your child in the right way? That's another option, another accountability situation. But we don't think about it like that for some reason, even though, and this is what I'm saying, we all know that we all came from whatever was before us in every way. So if I go to a school, I am part of that school and I'm part of that school's journey as a chain of, the class of 2009, the class of, 1985, I don't know, the class of the class of the class of the class of. We're all a chain. And in everything that we do in this life, as is the nature of living, we're all a part of these chains. So this is my thing, that there has to be more attention on the influence of wickedness and where it comes from in the chain than just an individual. And this is what I learned watching stories about psychopaths, right? And like studying all about it. Like every single story, I'm yet to see a story of somebody that just had a lovely upbringing that became a psychopath. I'm yet to see it. What I have seen is that, and this is something I discovered, did a whole study about it for obvious reasons, that there's this thing that this scientist guy, basically, he was doing studies of psychopaths, right? Their brains. What he found was, first of all, he himself actually happened to have the brain chemistry of a psychopath. And when he asked his wife about it, she was like, actually, yeah, babe, you are kind of like, X, Y, and Z, all the different characteristics, which a lot of people don't know what the characteristics actually are, other than the ones that are like non-remorseful, this, that, and the other. Because what he found out and what he said, which is obvious, that a lot of CEOs have psychopathic tendencies because they are more, the fact that they are lacking in empathy, the fact that they don't have more remorse makes it easier for them to make tough decisions that somebody else with a lot more empathy or whatever might not be able to make, would actually favors the growing of a company, of a business. You see what I'm saying? So again, even the term psychopath in and of itself, we've given it connotations, but somehow it seems to have worked out in one area and somehow it seems to have not in another. And I guess it's a collective situation of the free will. It's the free will of the individual, of course. At the end of the day, when we become adults, and when I'm saying adults, I'm not talking about like when you turn 18. I'm saying as you progress as an adult in life, the older you get, all you can do more is self-evaluate and do your own work. Again, it's your choice. It's your choice whether you want to do that or not, or it's your choice. It's free will. Something, it all comes down to free will, and it comes down to the chains of command. So, like for example, I was thinking about this. I think about this a lot when it comes to children and behavior, because one thing about kids is that they are, and we all were a child once. I don't know why this is like rocket science. A lot of kids, it takes you one conversation to figure out what their problem is if they're badly behaving. The kids, I do, because I have to deal with a lot of badly behaving, quote unquote, badly behaved kids. If you ask them, their answers, if you're actually paying attention, their answers are actually pretty reasonable, because there was a chain of command, whatever it was. Could be their family, it could be the school, it could be whatever, of people that dropped the ball around, in and around them. So they didn't just become, they're not just a bad child. They might have certain tendencies, as we all are born with certain tendencies. Some people, we've all met the true creative, just completely lost. Like, you could describe like theater kids. We all know like what theater kids are like, bursting into song at any given time and dancing and anything. That's, some people are going to be born more susceptible to that, just like how some people are going to be born more susceptible to, being, as a kid, always taking everything apart and putting everything back together. And you know so that has to be taken into account as well. And again, with that, again, then it comes again to the collective free will. Because if you're somebody who villainizes, let's say you have a child that likes to take everything apart, but you like to villainize that, then you have villainized a part of their identity, and therefore they're not going to be very disinterested in life, and that's going to affect them for the rest of their life. Who knows what they end up doing? What if they end up becoming a convicted felon one day, because whatever, their dreams are completely destroyed, because that's what happened then. That's where that started. Had they been allowed, and that's why I think all kids have to be observed to see what they like to do, and you have to allow them to do things. You got to allow them to, like, make messes and things and all of this. You got to allow them to, some we would, as an adult population, we've really dropped the ball in terms of really forcing everybody to just color in the lines. We've become way too good, and it's like one of the first skills that we learn. And do you know what? There's so much that I have to say about the first skills that we learn in society at school, because I've been thinking more and more about it, like handwriting, how to cut, yeah, like coloring inside the line. If you color outside the line, that's wrong. If you color inside the line, that's right. This is all programming, right? So it's all to put us into a box. So some people, they don't belong in a box. They're not in a box. You know what I mean? There's one of the kids that I work with, and she's so sweet. And we had a situation. This is why I believe in purpose, by the way, as opposed to just living. We've gone on such a side note, but we're going to stay there because I think this is an important point. Because I'm going somewhere with this chain. So this kid, this girl that I teach, she's having a lot of struggles and has had a lot of struggles in the education system, because again, all of these so-called diagnoses of this, that, and the other, because that's what we do now. Before, we would address things and look at the environment, look at who's responsible where, and solve problems. Now we just label things. Like I said about the psychopath thing, we just label things. We just, oh, this person, they're just evil. Is that person just born evil? Well, let's see, right? So, and I've got to go to another level with this as well. I've got so much to say. So she was having all these troubles at school, and obviously very early on I always like assess the kids, like, and I have like my strategy of how I do my assessments, and I was like, there's nothing wrong here. Like, the only thing that's wrong is that she struggled, her brain, she's like a deep creative, she's what I'd say is one of those people who's deeply creative, and her head is all the way 100 miles in her creativity. So she's already making her own music. She's already knows how to play like 3 instruments. And then she showed me something that I thought was remarkable, because bearing in mind, I'm being told, oh, she works below the grade of where she's supposed to be. Again, I asked the questions. Why are we not asking who's choosing the grades? Why are we not questioning more of these things? Why are we just going with the flow? And if you don't go with the flow, you're getting a label. But anyway, so I was like, just she gives me this book that she's made. So essentially, she's written a book, all of her own volition, right? And in each page, she's written every chapter. She's in the middle. She's on like chapter 19 now, maybe chapter 20. Every page in the book, she's written like a whole paragraph of the storyline, and then she's drawn a whole sketch for the scene. And she's done this for like a whole stack of book, probably like about this thick. And I want you to think, she's how old? She's like maybe 12. And she's done the title page, and then in the back of the book, and this is where I thought was really cool, in the back of the book, she's got all these tasks and things that kids can do. So like, because it's like a kid's book she's written. And so it's got like word searches and crosswords. There's like all these little mini characters, and the characters have names that combine like animals and fruit, and you can do all these activities. So she's put all these activities, she's made like the ultimate book I as a teacher would want to use as a learning tool for kids like her age. You know what I mean? It's good reading, it's age appropriate. um there's activities in there. I think she said something about how she'd like to have, did she say, I don't know, I can't remember. Maybe it was me thinking it would be good to have stickers as well, but obviously she's 12. What ends up happening now, and this is the state, this is the position we're in, is so because according to her parents and everybody who's doing all of these assessments, because she's just doing this independently because she enjoys it, right? And like I said, her handwriting is actually beautiful. Her English quality is really good. Her vocabulary is actually really good. So all these things are fine. And again, like I said, I've been noticing the only time that people really seem to struggle with spelling, at least the kids I work with, is when the spelling doesn't make sense to how the word is being said, or they've never heard the word before, or little tweaks, here and there. So, yeah. So when I looked through this book, I was like, this is amazing. So I was just tracking what she was doing. When you try to get her to do some other tasks, her brain goes at 100 miles. So if I ask her a clear question, like, I don't know, I can't think of a question right now and I can't be bothered. She won't answer the question. She'll go like 100 steps ahead of the question that I asked. So that's why I think she's just been slapped with all these labels. And I was saying to her parents, I was like, if I was you guys, I would literally let this be like her personal project, and I would publish this book. Because like, this is what I'm saying about labels and where do things come from, and like collective whatever. The parents hadn't even looked at the book because they were like, oh, she's just always doing those random drawings. I'm like, you're here stressing, paying all this extra money, having to do this to this to this to this for her education. And she's 12, right? She's proven, she's clearly intelligent. She's clearly not struggling. The clear problem here is we're trying to put her in a box that she doesn't belong in, right? And she's been writing this book and you haven't even paid attention. Because I said to them, I was like, have you seen this? Like, they're like, no, we haven't seen it. I'm like, why? Oh, she's just her. And then she's like, my dad says it's just my silly little whatever, which again, this is what I'm saying. So what has happened? What would have happened in her life had I not been there to point these things out and say, hey, because at the moment they were just struggling, and it was just, she was going to not do well in school. They're going to say that she needs, probably get diagnosed one day, that she needs extra support for whatever because she wasn't able to complete her education and whatnot. And she'll tell you herself that her dream is to write stories. She's doing it already, and she's 12. Is there not leeway for us to work around that? Because I was like, why don't you just, she's also really good with science and maths. So I'm like, what are we doing here? Why are we, you see what I'm saying about the collective free will? Like the school system, the parents, myself, obviously she's 12, so she doesn't know any better, right? She's just living, and she doesn't get why she has to do the other things, because her brain's 100 times into the story that she's writing and into creating as she does, and that's what I'm saying is like, when we're talking about where things really came from, like, we got to think about everybody that's involved. And for me, the ultimate hierarchy of where things come from is the spiritual world. Hello, it's the spiritual world. It's God, and how us, God, each other, and everything interacted, or the devil, if we chose that way. So for example, like I said, I don't believe that like predators are just born. I believe they are made. So that's why I keep saying that Diddy was probably diddied, and the person that Diddy was probably diddied, and the person that Diddy was probably also Diddy. Do you get what I'm saying? So our attitude of, oh, we just need to try and catch the predators when it happens. No, we need to deal with this at a higher level. We need to go to the spiritual world. That's why, like I said, I was like, this girl, I'm thinking, this is her destiny. She's 12 and she's made a whole book. And we're saying she's struggling in school. What is she struggling with? She's struggling with being told to colour inside the lines, which, how has that turned out for us in society anyway? You know what I'm saying? These are the things that happen. And then if you like, and this is why I have such an issue with this whole is evil born or evil whatever, because instead of us recognizing that the diddies that diddied and all those, that whole chain, instead of acknowledging that, what we do instead is we try to find some other solution. Oh, let's put them in jail. People who do this should whatever. But then the spiritual chain doesn't get dealt with, because the truth is, now anybody who has experienced that from him has the potential to become like him, because that's how the devil works. Like the devil specifically loves to use sexual crimes because it's the easiest way to pass on whatever he's trying to pass on. So it's our job. That's why I believe in deliverance. I believe even I need more deliverance in my life. I've been having deliverance and I believe I still need more, because I believe that the things that have happened, it's going to affect me. It's either that it's going to affect me to the point where, say, you know, I struggle in life in certain areas or with certain things, and people might just then again label me. Or it could turn me into like just like the people that did it in the first place. And that's why I'm saying that when we ask the question of is anyone born evil, is people born evil, or things, nothing is born out of nothing. Everything came from somewhere. Every single one of us has a whole history of ancestry that goes all the way back to the beginning. Like the Bible says, in the beginning. Every single one of us. So everything that we even experience, every single thing that's happening in the world has a whole chain of how these things have happened, right? Like I said, this is why I have an issue with society trying to all of a sudden act like they care so much about the kids. Because I'm like, but you guys have been maintaining this. Because I'm thinking, I'm 27 now. And so I haven't been an adult that long. And when I mean adult, I mean actually or properly like worldly aware to figure out enough stuff, right? And I'm thinking, people act like, oh no, how did this happen? Or how does this happen? It's like, but we were all here. We were all here the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We all saw what was happening. There was somebody in the room or there was somebody somewhere. So the reason why we're here, some of those kids who are in some of these underground tunnels, all these different people that work for the devil. And that's the other thing. Why do you think that they're doing this? Is the devil's factory for all these problems? Because he's like, haha, if I can have all these issues with all these kids and I can cause them all to have these issues, then one of them's going to pop up, at least one of them's going to pop up as in the next Diddy. And on top of that, I need to get their spiritual power, which is why I said it's all about the spiritual chain of events. Why has Jesus died on the cross? Why was it important that he died for all of our sins? The importance was that we needed a power that was enough to cover all of the issues of everything in all of history. Otherwise, we'd be out here doing these things. We wouldn't. Well, actually, I say we wouldn't. Again, if you look historically at communities from all over the world, sacrificing to God was a part of day-to-day lives. That's what you do. That's what you do. I was thinking about this, that there are some wedding ceremonies that people don't realize in some countries in, say, Africa. They don't realize that when they're doing these sacrifices, like, say, when people are getting married and they'll, like, kill an animal or whatever. Now, the heart of why the people do it now is tradition. But the reason that it started was actually I don't know, what do we call it? Worshipping of other gods. So I'm like, there's so much of these things in society that we do. Like I said to you guys before, throwing money into a well. The reason why people did that is they're making sacrifices to the gods that they believe are in the water. That's why you throw money in the well, in waters. For that exact reason, to make sacrifices. So sacrificing and all this has been a long part of human history, because again, even with the Bible, that's where you see the difference between how the God does things and how the world does things. The way that God does, sorry, this window is bothering me, bear with me. How does God do things? God got his people historically, okay, sacrifice, and the sacrifice wasn't even, the sacrifices were always building up to the ultimate sacrifice that was going to be Jesus. But the reality is, they were like, oh, I had the perfect word for it the other day. It was like a interest payment, if you will, because you can't actually pay off the loan, but you're paying the interest, basically. So to buy you time until the final savior comes. So they would be sacrificing their animals. Listen, so would their other gods that they would come up. Like, it was just normal for everyone. It's always been a part of it. And that's what I'm saying, that there's no use to us just looking at things without looking at things on a spiritual level, because that's where the chain comes from. The difference is with the devil, his reason for getting you to do things and his reason for doing things this way is he has to have some kind of heinous route to get you to where he wants to get you to. Whereas with God, it's going to be a good route because again, they're opposite kingdoms. So when people are like, why is so why do people do this? Where do evil people come from and what all of this? I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, unless they're professing Christ, I have no reason to believe anybody is good. And I'm not trying to say that the only way you can be good is you have to have God, but it goes back to what I've been saying about shared free will and combinations. Because some of you in life, and this is why I'm so glad that I've seen so many different things in this life, and I've been around so many different kinds of people, and I like to sit and talk to the people that other people don't want to talk to, because I really like to get to know their story, like about how their life turned out, rather than judging them. Like, I like to get to know, how did your story, like, how did you get here? And so, one thing I've realized about people is that so many people are in a position of privilege that you don't realize you have. So you're out here judging, saying, oh, that person's an evil person, that person's whatever. You grew up in a nice community. You grew up, I don't know, with a nice family. You went to a school that had really passionate teachers, or at least one or two, that was enough. You had a lot of things that other people didn't have. So when you're judging that person, you're judging them from a place of privilege because you don't know why they did what they did. It's like when people talk about convicted felons. I'm like, I know why people are convicted felons. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They had things that they needed to do, and maybe they didn't have the route that you had. Maybe they didn't have the support system that you had. Like, I always used to notice this when I would watch Shark Tank, and it would always shock me because obviously, as somebody who like started a business from scratch by myself, or multiple actually, I've done really. As somebody who's done that, I would always think, like, I would watch Shark Tank and it blew my mind because I was like, because I was always be like, where do these people get this money from? And they'll be like, I inherited I got a second mortgage on my house. I'm like, some people are not even able to get a mortgage, my friend. Or me and my buddies came together and all 10 of us saved, I don't know, $10,000 in 2 years, and we all invested it together. Or I don't know, my grandma gave me a chunk of her pension, and it will be like for a skateboarding business, detailing skateboards. So if you come from a situation like that, and you've come from a loving, supporting place, you're now going to judge somebody else whose circumstances you don't even know. You're sitting on your high horse of self-righteousness. That's what I've learned. Listen, I've never really, I guess I've never thought myself as a good person anyways. So this isn't something I really struggled with too much. But what I definitely didn't think, what I do try to think about, and I always remind people, is there are certain things that I know that I have that are benefits to me. So if somebody says privileges, so if somebody says to me, oh, you're well educated, you got your degree, whatever, I don't take it for granted because I had, I've come from educated people. Everybody's intelligent on both sides of my family. Literally all of them are intelligent, like hugely. So that environment was always there. It was normal that people got a degree or were in a particular career path, or at least were successful to some degree. So I was set up in such a way that I was always going to end up getting a good education. Simplest of examples here. My grandmother and my grandfather were teachers. Even my father also did teaching, if you can imagine. So for me, education was a thing that was always going to happen, and I was always told, no one here will take your education away from you, the importance of learning, and and I was actually supported well by my mum, who, like, for example, here's one privilege that other people might not have. I could sit here and be like, you couldn't even get, like, any qualifications, high school qualifications, whatever. I was here having my mum, who did French in Africa, that she learned when she was a teenager. She knows more French than I do to this day. Isn't that crazy? So she's helping me with my homework, for example. like that would be an example of something that I have as a privilege, or the job that she does, she has to, because she works in healthcare, she has to do quite extensive types of interviewing and things for new people that come to work, and she manages people. So if I'm going to get a job, I have support in terms of this is what you should wear for an interview, wear this top, wear this type of clothing, don't forget to ask this question, here are the tips of what I think, the do's and don'ts I feel when I'm interviewing people. So I'm in a place of privilege in that sense. You know what I'm saying? So I don't take my education to be something that I just think, oh, I wasn't just born like this. Was I born with tendencies? As I believe I was born with logical tendencies, as in just being. I feel like my brain is a machine, and I like machines. So I like machines, and I like I like machines. Okay, so for me, I had that tendency already, but then I was in an environment that allowed for that to flourish. So where somebody else might say, "Oh, you're just born as an intelligent person," like no. I also had to work really hard. Like I had to work really freaking hard. I cried every single results day, as I told you, except the one before I went to uni, and that was only because I got my uni place before. But I cried every single results day. You guys wouldn't believe how hard I had to study. That's why when somebody said to me that getting my degree, I was lucky to get my degree, I was like, I would love to see you do my pure chemistry degree. I would love to see it. I would love to see you put in as much effort and work as I did. And I'd love to see you do it with as little as I did, and having to still have a job and still manage all these other things. I would love to see you do it. This is what I'm saying again about privilege. So when I'm there privileged, coming with my education, and I go and I'm working with, kids, I worked with young people in all different areas, right? And there's so many times I would go to, like, I remember there was a place I used to go, I was hired to go, we were trying to get to, basically we were going to survey the local young people to find out what their options are and what they can do. And what I discovered is, obviously, one thing being, as I've said to you guys before, historically, when I was a kid, there were so many more places you're allowed to play in public. Now they're removing a lot of them. They started removing a lot of them. There would be like a patch of grass that would be like not in front of somebody's house, like not even in someone's house. There'd be like a whole like hedge almost, and it's like separate patch of land from the houses, and they'd all of a sudden decide no ball games. So it's like we who could go into the supermarket and buy a football for like £1 or a couple quid, or go to Poundland even, and play and be outside playing the whole time. And then you have the older generation talking about, oh, the kids are all on the phones now. And it's like, I remember being a kid, and I'm telling you, even guys now, I've been telling you stories of all these places I used to hang out. They're like changing them up now for the sake of, and now there's more footpath, there's more crime and whatever. So places that we used to go and explore as kids have now become public places for the adults. And now if you now find a bunch of teenagers chilling by the river, whereas before it was just a nice little fun time separate from where everybody else was, and now it's going to be like, oh, be careful that you don't make noise for the old couple that's sitting on the benches that we had to build. And so I'm like, look, I get it, but you guys see what I'm saying? Like, it's all comes down to the chain. And that's why I said, like, a chain. I am a product of the chain that came before me. My grandparents, all very intelligent, and not all necessarily like through school, right? But everybody's intelligent. That's what makes all the things I've been through my life insane, because we're dealing with big brains, I should say. Which then affected the next level of the chain, after my grandparents, my own parents, my aunties, my uncles, and all of that, which then affects the next chain, which is me, and me being the oldest grandchild, or second oldest on one side of my family. And so, yeah, so it's like, you see what I'm saying? It's the chain. And in the same way, and this is why it's crazy, because people will talk about, oh, generational curses and this and that. I'm like, again, so you get it. You get that there's a chain. You get that these things happen because this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Right? And so that's what I'm saying. And as I've said to you before, my feeling is that it all just went it all just went badly. Ow, I forgot that I had a new piercing. Ow. Yeah. I feel like it all went wrong with Adam and Eve. As soon as they had, things just went bad, and then they just kept getting worse. So no, I don't believe that evil people are born evil. I believe that there are a myriad of things that come together that could be spiritual. So some evil people out there. The reason why, and this is why I'm scared of the older generations, and the fact that one of them is referred to as the silent generation scares me, because what it tells me is there's this capacity for these hidden spiritual things that are affecting us to never be seen, because that's what the devil wants to do. I have this whole theory now about this cataclysm from 12,400 years ago, because I honestly have a theory. Yeah, and so now people, you might be living out things in your life. You might wonder why you have certain things, like why do you have seemingly anger issues, or why does everybody in your family get cancer, and no one ever makes it past the age of 40? Why I don't know why, whatever. It's because you don't know where the chain came from, because you're not looking in the spiritual world. And as I said, we have to look at things from a spiritual sense, and because that is ultimately always where the chain begins, because it begins with God. It begins with God, and then the devil decided to separate himself to the side, and then everything that happened from there, it was one big chain, and so yeah, that's the long and short of it. No, I do not believe that evil is born. I believe that it is created. I believe that it is passed on, because I don't believe anything starts from nowhere. So, and again, why do we believe that in society, especially when literally one of the laws of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created nor destroyed? So everything we're working with is everything we were always working with anyway. And that, my friends, is why the devil's always doing these weird sacrifices, and the other gods, you know why? Because they can't create power. What they can try to do is get the power away from us, like our life force in our blood. For one, they can get the power from us because God breathed life into us, but they can't create power. So I'm saying we've got to think about things in a spiritual sense. But anyway, you guys, I think we'll leave that there, because if life's a game, it's pay to win. God bless you. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.